So I think Karan has given great introduction, so I'll not go into it. So let's jump directly into it. So the first thing I want everyone to look at, I think, whether you are at a great scale, whether you are just starting out, whether you are probably just past the POC stage. The first thing from performance marketing point of view is you should understand what the economics is. And performance marketing economics is basically two things. So one is platform economics and the other is business economics. Now, why do I'm talking about business economics? So in the last 1 year, the briefs that we are getting from the companies have changed. People are also talking about, Siddharth, can you also tell us how our advertising and how our returns will have an impact on our CM2 percentage? It's not CM3, CM4 right now, but we are also talking about that. So we are trying to also help companies figure out a way that how their numbers will look like in a longer run. And that's where business economics come in. But for this discussion, we are mostly going to talk about platform economics. We are strictly keeping ourselves to it. And the reason I say platform economics is because the numbers on Google versus Facebook or versus Taboola or YouTube may be entirely different. I don't know, something is wrong. Yeah. So the numbers are extremely different. And that's what we are. So for on the platform perspective, there are just three metrics which decide what your OS is. So people, and this is singular framework that you can use everywhere. So a lot of people will tell you creatives अच्छे करने हैं, we need to have a better experience and everything. But why is the question? So there are three metrics for which you do every single thing. So number one is cost per click, conversion rate, and average order value. There is just three metrics which decide what your ROAS will look like. Now, every time any agency, any teammate, or let's say anyone from outside is suggesting you, let's improve website experience, let's improve ad card rules, let's try to improve CTRs, you should try to understand what metric it's going to impact. So CPCs are simply influenced by three things: CPMs, CTRs, and ads. If Facebook has bumped your CPMs by double, you probably can't do anything about it other than trying to find new audience or trying to see why the CPMs may have increased. So if your CPC is high, naturally it will impact ROAS. The other is conversion rate, which is driven by website experience, offers, checkout flow, and blockers. So this is something which is ignored by a lot of people, but sometimes there are so many blockers and there are benchmarks to it. Over a period of time, you will be able to create benchmarks that how many people from clicks to landing page view is coming up, what is the landing page view to the actual add to cart rate, and from add to cart rate to actual initiating checkout. So for instance, we have seen that in D2C, if your checkout to actual conversion rate is anything around 40%, you are doing good. So these are the kind of benchmarks you are able to develop over a period of time. But anyone who is suggesting any specific metric, they should be talking about these things, right? And once you have this number as benchmark, you will know why your ROAS is coming down or why it is coming up. If your ROAS is coming up and down, one of these three metrics has moved. And if one of these three metrics has moved, chances is the sub metric has moved in one way or the other. So it's a framework that I wanted to present to you. And anyone who is, even as a business owner, you don't have a time to talk to an agency in detail, you can simply discuss these three four metrics very easily, and I think it makes the discussion very easier. There is just one point I would like to suggest, which is cart rule. I'm talking about this because I think this will be relevant for a lot of companies, and it's a very new thing we have tried in past 1 year from experimentation point of view. So cart rule is basically what you, so you must have seen that Mintra or any other website, they say that if you order products worth 3,000, only then you can take 10% discount. I mean, you must have tried also this with your own startup. But what cart rule does is it pushes the average order value lower and upper side, right? So there's a general pattern of like expectation. If your average order value increases, your conversion rate, it kind of declines. And the trajectory that we are seeing is something like this, right? So at a lower conversion rate, at a lower average order value, conversion rate is usually on the upper side. And as the average order value decreases, conversion rate starts declining. But where does the right ROAS really comes at? So a lot of performance marketing is say that start increasing the average order value and your ROAS will start looking good. But it doesn't work like that. What we have seen is most of the time ROAS looks good at this point. What that point for your business is, it may be something that we need to dive down and see. But I think anything that you are anytime you're trying to improve the average order value, you need to see how your conversion rate is fluctuating and what is the ROAS that you are getting at. And this is an experimentation you should try to do at the initial stages, or even when you're launching a new product, how you can create different cart rules. And if you have large number of SKUs, you should be testing lot with cart rule. Try it at 1500, 2000, 10,000, 5,000, and see how your numbers are coming up. But this really works for most of the brands. So moving on, I want to discuss meta ads. Now, on the meta ads front, there is so much to talk about, and the suggestions that many people give, they may not be applicable depending upon the what stage you are at. So specifically on meta, and this is meta guideline, by the way, so this is not anything made up. So there are 5 levels that meta says that you are in. So either you are the foundation stage, beginner stage, intermediate, advanced, master. But you don't need to like dive deep into each aspect of it. I think the foundational level is something which I feel most of the brands I'm talking to or I encounter, they have already implemented it. But otherwise, everyone is at the beginner, intermediate, advanced, and master stage. So I'll discuss specific things among all of these 4 levels, which you can implement right now or you can implement at a later stage. So number one thing is in level 2. The first thing is we see a lot of people making creatives, but they do not create the creative still from having a mobile point of view. And what do I mean by that? So sometimes you will notice that even if you're creating a static image, brands are missing that they have to have a story format image with that as well. So you just cannot have one asset. So Facebook does provide you a tool. Facebook gives you a tool which allows you to, it automatically tweaks your creative and ad copies to fit that screen. But responses are better if you are going with every single format out there. So for instance, Facebook recommends that you must have a video assets in different formats, right? Especially if you are doing branding campaigns. If you're doing static campaigns, you need to have one squarish image, you need to have one story based image at least, right? So every time you are just trying to create creative, have this mobile first mindset in mind that it's going to look at screen. Now what happens is, if there is a static image, usually what you get is like this, and there is a text. That's how Facebook optimizes. But think of it, you are losing a lot of real estate. You're spending money to show ad there, and unless you're using it to communicate something or the other, I mean, you're losing out on so much opportunity. So this one single method, if you have on the creative front, this can completely change what your CPCs are and CTRs are looking like. Story inventory is giving right now a lot of clicks. So this is worth experimentation right now. And even this format actually also comes up when you are scrolling reels. So again, that's where this is also important. The other thing is, don't go specific unless your brand is like that, especially if you're going for, let's say, tier 1 cities. It makes sense if your product is very custom. For instance, there is a premium shirt company we have just onboarded, which is probably selling at 4,500 or so. Now when you're launching a brand like that, you want to focus on very niche audiences. But once your brand has grown, you're probably doing 1 cr, 5 cr, 10 cr in ARR. Now you want to start going broader, and at that point in time, stop going into detailed targeting. And detailed targeting basically means is, if you have let's say added an interest, let's say Zara as an interest, right? Now most of the people try to narrow it down by saying that Zara and everyone who is an engaged shopper. So this is a good strategy if you have just started out, if you are at level 1. But when you're trying to expand and when you're trying to scale, you shouldn't be doing detailed targeting. So this is what Facebook asks you to not use, right? Just go with one single interest, big, broad, and let the algorithm find who is the best match for you. Now, from the intermediate level, there are three amazing tips. And for some of the startups I think I've seen, this is one of the most valuable suggestion. So the tendency to create lookalike, I hope everyone understands this. So tendency to create lookalike is always there. But when we are doing that, we are doing lookalikes only of the generic customers, right? We are not segmenting that customer. So what we recommend is, and Facebook also recommends this, you need to have value-based lookalikes. So let's say if your average order value on the website is, let's say, 2,000 rupees. Now you segregate all the customers who have purchased more than 2,000 rupees. So that's one way to create a value-based lookalike. So list of all the customers who have purchased over 2,000 worth value. The other is create a list of customers who have purchased at least 2 times, right? Equal to or more than 2 times on your website. Now what you're doing is basically you're giving Facebook the signal of all those people who have or who are probably high value for your business, and you're using them to create a lookalike which has more chances to give a major impact in terms of ROAS in the longer run. So this is something we are implementing. And since someone said it, marketplace related question, on marketplaces, this kind of lookalikes works really well most of the time. If your marketplace strategy is to acquire customers and probably sell and upsell them, you need to have a strategy where you're using value-based lookalikes. On the creative side, there are two major suggestions. So dynamic creative, I think everyone has tried it. If you haven't, go for it. So basically, Facebook, like Google, has started adding multiple assets that you can add in a single ad, and Facebook will automatically decide which ones to use when it is delivering an ad. And what you're basically doing is you're training the algorithm to find the best out of it. So the more creatives are there, the more titles, the more description and CTs are there, the better your ads will be. And we have seen this in action. Sometimes on the executional level, people say that, okay, I have 5 slots for descriptions, 5 slots for titles, let me just try 2 or 3. But I would recommend, we have seen that in action, that when you're filling all the assets, the chances of your performance is better, and we've seen that in action. And on retargeting front, dynamic ads work really, really well. And there are two ways. So one is dynamic catalog ads. So I'm not talking about that. That's very different. So dynamic ads specifically for retargeting works really, really well. So you just add all the best assets that you have in the past and just serve it to the retargeting audience. It works really well. And Facebook's is also recommending it.
Siddharth, I had a question on the value-based lookalikes.
Please.
Uh, does the creative strategy also change basis the lookalike that you're creating? So, like if you're targeting users who have purchased for more than 2,000 rupees, the creative is different versus somebody who's a frequent shopper. For them, the strategy is different. So, like it's like a different campaign altogether.
Yes. Ideally, the answer to your question is yes. Like there has to be creative strategy very different for, let's say, high valued customers when you're trying to approach them. But look at this word here, the prospecting part. So basically, when you're even using lookalikes, you're trying to find new customers. The algorithm is trying to find new customers, and when you're trying to do that, I would recommend don't try to experiment a lot with new ads. Whatever has worked for you in the past, because this audience is you are able to make only because you had some good creatives. Try to just go ahead with it. Try to find the best creatives from all the assets that you have had in the past and go with it, because essentially what you're trying to do is find new set of customers for yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Great. So moving on, this is one of the most important point, and every single brand that we talk to, they talk about attribution a lot. So there is attributed purchases and there is non-attributed purchases, right? So this is everyone is, I think, aware of it. But how much is attributed and how much is non-attributed? To be honest, there is no way to tell that. And once Google brings in the let's say the third party removal from Google Chrome, this is going to be even more
When is
mess.
that happening?
Sorry,
When is that happening?
probably by the end of the year.
तो हमारा रोएस और कम हो जाएगा फिर.
काफी चांस एक बार तो काफी डिप होगा एंड ऑफ द ईयर के आसपास. देयर इज चांसेस, देयर आर वेज दैट ब्रांड्स आर प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर इट बाय, because a lot of people are saying that maybe the pixel will completely go out of picture and we'll have conversion APIs the base. So right now when Facebook recommends that you
Yeah.
implement pixel and conversion API, so what happens is data comes from both the sides, but the data of pixel is prioritized, and there is something called deduplication which you do,
Yeah.
which you tell Facebook that just pick one of the conversion from the two, and pixel is prioritized.
Yeah.
Chances are that conversion API will be prioritized next year onwards, but it's all like on the in the air. It's not exactly what we know is going to happen in Facebook. Whatever it says is going to happen. But the point I'm trying to make here is conversion uplift is one of the best study I think everyone should be doing. And again, I'll take Fitello's example here. So you must have seen that your ROAS is probably 1.7, but when you check on dashboard, it's probably 3. And when you look at Facebook dashboard, your ROAS is 2.5. It's 3.5 actually when it's blended. So does that mean the rest of the sales are coming from other platforms? It may be or may not be. So one of the best way to judge whether an ad campaign is going in the right direction or not is do the conversion lift study. So there is no specific way to do that. Everyone does it in a different way. But you simply need to see if you're scaling your budget, is your overall revenue increasing or not? Plain and simple. Or is it improving without compromising the ROAS at least? If that is happening, and even if your attributed ROAS is at that level, it's perfectly fine. There is no problem with it. We tested with a brand called Abishti last year. So they were spending, I think, close to 8 or 10 lakhs, and we were doing a revenue of around 35 lakhs or so at one point in time. What we noticed is that the attribution was somewhere around 1.5, basically mean that we were doing around 15 lakhs from ads. So for a week, we tested something very radical. We said, cut the budget. Let's see revenue kitna down hota hai. When we cut the budget, the revenue went down by 80%, which basically means a lot of purchases are actually not getting attributed. So if you're scaling the budget, don't think what your attributed ROAS is. You just need to see whether your sales is actually going up or not. And this is even more profound when you are a lead generation driven business. When you're doing lead gen, don't think of whether there is any attribution coming or not. I'm an agency, we advertise a lot, and we don't look at cost per lead as the major metric. We look at the other metrics as well. So how many referrals are we getting, for instance? And by the way, as an agency, I'm telling you, the moment we started using meta ads as a platform to, let's say, do non-conversion campaigns, the only parameter we look at is whether it is increasing our business or not. And as long as that is happening, I think we shouldn't be diving too much into the attribution part as well. Then there is also something called brand lift. Now it's even more complex, and there is multiple ways to do that. But the simplistic way to do that is it pushing your brand searches up or not, whether on Amazon or whether on Google, wherever you can see the searches. And for instance, every time you do YouTube campaigns, I'm digressing a little bit, we have seen the brand searches goes up. We have seen brand searches go up by at least 300% sometimes. So anytime you're advertising, you also need to look at the other areas, how your performance marketing is impacting your business. So because while we are focusing on the overall revenue, but it may be contributing in a lot of other ways. And finally, this is the most important part. Please, please, please have conversions API set up. If you are not doing this, abhi shayad theek chal raha hai, but it may not be really well for you in the longer run. So think of it as a prevention strategy when things, or let's say the new third API, third party data API is removed. So have the conversion API in place. And there is another point why you should implement conversion API right now. So let's say if out of 10 purchases, 10 actual purchases from Facebook, 5 are attributed to Facebook, right? Now, with conversion API, maybe that attribution can go to 7, 8, or maybe 9. But even if it is going to 8, right? This is a good reason to implement conversion API, because now Facebook or Meta is getting more attribution. So earlier Facebook thought, okay, I have gotten 5 purchases, but now it's knowing, okay, 8 purchases actually came from this campaign. So it knows that which audience to really target. So we have seen conversion attribution uplift once this happened, and the more conversion attribution is happening, the better your campaigns will perform, at least on paper, right? So if you haven't implemented conversions API right now, you should go ahead and do it immediately.
And guys, this is the biggest push that we are also putting internally at Meta, where we're asking all advertisers to move to CAPI, so conversions API. So if you haven't done it, let's discuss this. But this is like super important for every brand, because as Siddharth said, we are moving away from a pixel world and we are moving into a server tracking world. So CAPI is very very important, because Google का भी अगर by the end of the year खत्म हो जाएगा tracking, pixel tracking, so then it will become like even more relevant for you guys.
That's correct. That's accurate. And if you are a lead gen business, I think then तो ये होना ही चाहिए. मतलब आप थोड़ा फिर भी वेट कर सकते हो परचेज में, बट conversion API give you it's actually the future. Anyone, whether it is Google or any other advertising platform, they will implement something like conversion API, and think of it like server level tracking rather than browser level tracking, right? So this is the future, and the sooner you do it, the better it will be. This next is Google. So there's so much to discuss on Google Ads front, and I'll try to be quicker because I think time is lesser. So I'm going to discuss. So this is one ad example I wanted to share with you. So think of it like this. So try. I think everyone knows it. Why would they do a campaign with Ayushmann Khurrana on YouTube just to promote that that the movie is also coming, and you can also look at Raya along with it as a hair, let's say, treatment solution. So the thing is, when you advertise like this, YouTube actually is not just a conversion platform. It completely changes the way people look at your brand. So every platform has a different use case for the user. So someone who is on Instagram, he's probably passively look at and content, but someone who is on YouTube or who is using YouTube on, let's say, TV, they are looking at with a very different intent. Then there is also change in the screen size. So there's a concept in advertising which I really heard from Tanmay Bhatt. So he said that the bigger the screen is, the different the impact on the user, the bigger the impact on the user, at least in terms of the recall. So YouTube is that kind of platform, and that's why we have increased our ad spends in the last 2 years specifically on this platform. And YouTube is very hard to advertise on because you need assets, but there is still a lot of things that you can do. And to solve this, Google came up with something called Performance Max. And since I'm talking to most of the brands at D2C, so I wanted to keep it around that, but there is still so much to talk in Google Ads front. Now, I'll start with fundamental of Performance Max, and this is from our agency SOP. So there is a first, I start with warning, right? And the reason I'm starting with warning is every time you will talk to a marketer, you talk to a Google expert, or let's say Google's own representative, they will say that start Performance Max campaign with maximize clicks. It's a Google's recommendation. Don't do it, because the moment you do it, you will see that you're getting a lot of clicks, very cheap clicks, but we're not getting sales. And the reason this happens is fundamentally PMax has lot of placement. It has YouTube, it has display, it has search, it has Gmail, and of course it has shopping. It has shopping as well, right? Uh, so what happens is when you do maximize click, Google is spending on all the platforms where it can get the maximum clicks from at a cheaper cost, right? So you don't get sales, and it's a pattern we have seen across accounts. So what do you do instead? Start with a target ROAS. Always start PMAX campaigns with target words. It's a written SOP in our company. Nobody starts a PMAX campaign with maximize clicks. Now, what happens when you do target ROAS is now now Google is thinking, hey, let me try to find clicks which may result in conversion. So essentially, your spends on shopping is prioritized, which is essentially what you want to do. All right. So now one of the problem you will see when you implement the target ROAS is you will see that you are not getting clicks, and it's okay. But when that is happening, try to reduce the target ROAS lesser side. If you want 2 ROAS, go at 1.5. If you want 1.5, go at 1.3. So try to make it a little lower, and you'll see that conversion starts coming in. But once the conversions start coming in, the greatest thing about Performance Max is it scales. It's the fundamental problem that Google is trying to solve, that it's very search driven platform, and they want to go beyond it. Once your target ROAS is hitting, just double the budget. Max campaigns, it works really smooth. The learning curve is high. The campaigns can take 7 days, 14 days to stabilize. But once it does, it's there's no the nothing that can stop it. We are spending north of 1 lakh per day for certain brands just on Performance Max. uh,
And guys, this is a great suggestion, because when you look at target ROAS, you are just like, it's like incremental revenue for us at our particular ROAS, right? Like, I mean, it's like there's no risk attached to it, because you're saying that mujhe 2.5 ka ROAS chahiye, and that's all incremental for me, and you can start with a budget, right?
yeah,
I think that's like a very low hanging fruit, for a lot of our categories. Like for example, oral care ho gaya, ya protein ho gaya, jahan pe searches high hain, right? So where you can leverage Google, like obviously shopping to hoga hi, but essentially like these are categories where like I think Performance Max can definitely do a lot of incremental revenue for you guys.
exactly. And there's a process to also measure its success. There's an incremental process of success. So if purchase is not coming, it's fine. Don't go there. First is visibility. Is your product getting visible for the search term that you want or not? And I'll just give an example here. So let's say if you search, you can see my screen, like there is a new tab.
Yeah.
Great. So let's say if you search for, let's say, curly hair product, or let's say curly hair shampoo. So you'll see a lot of brands coming in with curls. Arata, Fix My Curls, Arata, Man Matters, right? So first thing is, when you are having a product which is for which people are searching for, just ensure that at least your brand is visible. That's the basic thing. The second part to it is whether you are getting clicks or not, and clicks will come because of these features. So if you notice, Arata here, the price is marked in cut 899 cross and 629, and these are at 1195. And even if I go on this page, right, this is not the right example. Let me just open this one. Yeah, sometimes the point I'm trying to make is, sometimes so you see it's 903 and it's 858 is the actual price, but it's not getting visibility here accurately. If everything is implemented correctly, you will notice that the price will be cut and it will be 629, and chances are that this will get clicks. So the CTRs are better when it has rich elements. You notice when there is an off, it will be written 20% off, there is a code to it, and customers can actually click on it and see, right? So basically, the first part, once the visibility is there, just focus on how to get clicks, focus on rich elements, and you can do that by going into something called supplement feed. There's a tool in Merchant Center with which you can do that. And then once you're getting clicks, if your landing page is great, everything is perfect, you will definitely get sales. Conversion rates are really good here. And the action in Google Ads actually happen in Google Merchant Center and website content. So don't think it's just a matter of setting up the campaign. You will need to do and improve the feed. You will need to also see what exactly the description should be. So if you notice, even this product, it's written fluidic shampoo for curly hair. But if you check here, the title is very different. It's curly hair shampoo. So this curly hair shampoo at the top, this has been written actually in supplement feed. So now Google actually know that this product is for the actual search term, this search term, right? So it's a little hacks there which allows you to advertise. And it's very different from Facebook, because there is no like set way to have a creative and everything. You use Google's own features to make your ads appear. So it's complex, but I think it's implementable if you spend time there. and uh, and yeah, this is one point I wanted to make as well. uh, if you are a D2C brand, spend a lot of time in Google Merchant Center. They have great tools in growth category there. You have price competitiveness tool. So this is for one of the brand that you're working with. So if you notice, this tool allows you to see if you are listed across marketplaces, how your pricing are across the domain and across the web. So this basically means for all the products, the products for which we have lower price than the benchmark price is at 46%, which means at our own website. And at our own website, we have some products which are 53% of the products are above the benchmark price. So this is a great analysis. You should always be doing this day in, day out. And it has amazing tool like bestsellers. And I think I'd open a screen to show you. So if you go into best sellers, you will be able to see which products are actually doing well in your category. You can just simply select the country, you can select the category. For instance, if you want to check in clothing and accessories, which products are doing really well, which brands are doing well, you can exactly see that. This will help you even in launching new product. This will also help you in seeing which brands are actually killing it and increasing their ad spends on. And this is the similar, this is for the products and this is for the brands. So you will be able to see which brands are actually killing it in this category. So Puma, 353 product listed, going very high. How their ranking has changed over a period of time. So you can do this analysis for your own categories. There is subcategories. If you click on, let's say,
फूड में कुछ देख लो प्रोटीन.
food, mein, right?
Yeah.
You can also search here protein, or let's say food. I'll use supplements.
Fitness and nutrition, I think. Vitamin supplement.
Yes, fitness and nutrition, correct. So if I go there, I'll be able to see which brands are doing well and which of you can click here and check all the products.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you see that they have been doing really well across the web right now. So it's a fantastic tool. The more time you spend here, the more data you'll have on the competitors, and probably it will help you in launching new set of products.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spend more time here. There is tools like price insights there and all of that, which is also an added I think advantage. And I am very I'm like out of time, but this is one part I really wanted to show you guys. So I call this building your own audience. So over a period of years, what has happened is Facebook has removed interest, uh, and even the new interests which have been bought in, these are very broad audience. So it will become even messier in the longer run, and you will be completely dependent on algorithms to drive sales for you. So it's good and bad. It's good in the sense that algorithm does a lot of targeting hard work. It's bad because you will never know where your customers are coming from. So to solve this concept, we are doing something called building your own audience, and we are implementing it across brands. Fitello was one of our first clients where we implemented it. And it basically means that to target set of customers, you create that customers, you create that thing. And to do that, start spending on top of the funnel. So if you notice, there is something we call audience building ads. So we spend, so even in Fitello, well, I can't name the exact figure, but even when we were spending 8 figures in actual advertising spends per month, we were spending 40 to 50% just on audience building. It sounds preposterous, but that's exactly what it was like. And our metric for those campaigns were very simple. What is the cost per follow? What is the cost per share? And what is the cost per comment? And we knew that any person who has consumed 4 pieces of content is eventually becoming a customer. So we were so confident about it. And Fitello, for instance, has been such a good case study, and this model is so proven that what we did with Fitello as a brand page, we are replicating it with other Instagram pages. We are creating Fitello Telugu, Fitello South, Fitello Maharashtra, basically a content for each and every location, or let's say vernacular and geographical location of India, our states, right? And this is helping us out a lot. Now, what does this mean in action? So in action, I'll give you a quick example here. Um and there was one question from that I want to address, which was regarding content variation. I think in the initial part someone had asked. So I'll also address this while discussing Fitello. Now in Fitello, if you notice, we have 308K followers. Uh, and look at the engagement that we are getting on content: 142K, 59K, 186K, 124K, 147. So the numbers are like that. But Facebook specifically and Instagram allows us to target everyone on the platform who has engaged with us in the past 365 days. So think of it like this: Fitolo, Facebook really knows who has been engaging with you in the past 1 year or so, 365 days. Now, if I simply take the people who have engaged with me over a period of 1 year, I can tell you in Fitello's case, that number will easily come out to be conservatively around a million at least. At least. All right. So, what I'm trying to say is, instead of now trying to find new audiences or trying to find interest on which I can target people, I am using my own audience who have interacted with me to build my business. And the chances of converting is very, very high. So eventually, from trying to find new audience, I'm going into the retargeting mode right now. And every time we do retargeting campaigns seasonally, it gives us great push in the results.
Yeah. It's always the best way to do it anyway.
Right. Now, the other point of the content that I wanted to make. So with Fitello, we have done a lot of things in terms of testing what the content is doing. But eventually, everything boiled down to three things. So one of the content was to bring in new audience, like the content which we knew that will give us followers. The second was which will give us engagement. And when I say engagement, we are specifically interested in shares. And third is the content which will give us the actual conversions, or in this case, leads, right? So the whole content strategy has been built around that. This content right here on the right, it's a testimonial. So that is what is giving sales. So this is the third category of content which actually drives conversion. This content here, where we do food comparison, a lot of the purpose of this content is actually to generate engagement. This has the highest level of comments and shares that we get in the content, because nobody is going to share testimonial. Who is going to share testimonial, right? So we don't want it to be shared. We want this content to be shared, and we have figured it out. Everyone in industry has copied it. And this content is in the real format because it gives us new users. People want to talk about food. People want to talk about like how to actually make certain kind of cuisine themselves. And this really drives the new followers and like new set of people who are coming on the platform. And the success of this content is actually what is cost per follow, right? So even for your brand, you can try and replicate it. We know that it's something that you cannot like figure out in one day. It probably needs a lot of experimentation over a period of many months. But once you do it, there is no stopping you. You will have always an audience which you own, which you can always go out, retarget, and give a bump in sales whenever you need, whenever you feel that the numbers are not looking great. And you can do it on the, let's say,
Great framework. I think, like, just to remember this: engagement, shares, and sales, right? Like, if you just divide your grid into three and just have these three types of content, right, can really help you scale and build your own audience.
exactly, exactly. And just to summarize, you can do engagement campaigns, video campaigns, page like profile visit campaigns. And I'm not saying you need to spend exorbitantly on it the way we did it with Fitello, but you can probably spend 8%, 12% of the budget on these campaigns. And the success of these campaigns will be seen over a period of multiple weeks and months. And as I said in the previous slides when discussing Facebook, the success of these campaigns is actually in the brand uplift rather than always the conversion uplift. So take time to assess it, but once you do, I think you'll be unstoppable. And the idea is this: actually, a lot of time, retargeting, when you see for D2C brands, people are just trying to target website visitors and people who have added product to the cart, which is good, which is basic, I think. But once you start focusing on targeting people who have actually engaged with you, that's where you have an audience which is latent, where the business can be built, right? And then we also recommend one kind of targeting, by the way, which is called upsell and cross sell. So while we are trying to target people who are not your customers, here we target people who are actually your customers. So this is the best way, and the spend is very less. And whenever you're launching a new product or there's a new offer, this audience gives the best results. So there's a quick takeaway from this one. But if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer. Or if you
Siddharth,
don't,
since you were talking about Vitello, one thing
yeah.
I observed, especially when you talk about weight loss, it's very susceptible to policy violations of Meta, right? If you make very specific claims, how do you really deal and navigate with that?
That's it's a difficult thing. I think we have found some kind of hacks, but I will still recommend that always follow Facebook's policy. I mean, sometimes when your ads do get banned, it's not like there was problem with the ad itself. It's the algorithm which is flagging it. So if the algorithm is flagging it, the chances are you'll be able to get it revoked by just talking to the Facebook support team. But always follow it. But I'll give you some tips. So let's say even the testimonials that we were doing, we were always doing it in a video format. We were never doing it in a side by side comparison format, because once you're doing videos, the chances of catching it is very less by the algorithm. And there is also a use case that you're making. You're not just simply saying that kivita weight kam ho gaya and things got better. You can go out and say that like you're actually making a life transformation for the person.
Got it. That's helpful.
Yeah. So
Uh,
there were some questions I think asked. I can discuss that, but if you guys have any questions, I can prioritize it right now.
I think Jenny and Tara have questions.
Please go ahead.
Hi Siddharth. So how you mentioned targeting audiences who've engaged on our posts and stories on Insta. So how do you do this through Meta?
Sorry, I didn't get your.
You mentioned that we should target audiences who've engaged with our posts and stories on Insta. So how do we put this on Meta when we're building ads?
Right. So essentially, it's simple. I mean, you don't need to do it via Insta or FB like that. I mean, whatever the content you are creating, always have an idea that what is the budget that you are going to spend on it, and just try to see whether the metrics of the shares and comments is actually making sense. And do it from ads dashboard. You don't need to do everything in Instagram by boosting posts, because it doesn't give you a lot of control, and the data analysis is also very difficult. I would recommend that you do everything via the ads dashboard. Does that make sense? So,
Tara, there's this option also in the ads manager where you can retarget audiences who have engaged with you. So happy to show it to you. Like we can just do a quick call.
it's correct.
Okay, all right. Done.
Jen, you had a question, I think.
Yeah. Any other question? Yeah.
Yeah, so my question was around content fatigue. A lot of times, a particular piece of content that's working really well for a month suddenly stops performing, and then you keep waiting for like 4 5 days for it to pick up again. It doesn't pick up, and then there's a lot of time goes into experimenting with other creatives. So, like, how do you tackle a situation like that?
So content fatigue is actually I would say it's a term which has a very vague understanding, because let's say if a content is working for you 3 days and it stopped performing on fourth day, it's not content fatigue. It's probably something else, right? Probably your audience size was too small to work beyond a certain level, or probably the budget that you had been allocating to it is higher than you can actually allocate to it. uh, Content fatigue in traditional terms only happens over a longer period of time. Think probably a quarter, right? At least 2 months, at least 7 or 8 weeks. If your product is mass, like it is reaching out to at least, it has customers of at least a lakh, 10 lakh audience who can actually buy it on a like TAM level. There's very less chance that it will have a fatigue in a very early stage. So fatigue doesn't happen in certain period of time. What may be happening though is that the audience size is small. So always check for it, how
Got
your
it.
frequency has changed over the period of this in which you are judging the content fatigue. If your let's say frequency is 3 already, chances are it's not content fatigue. It's probably that you have exhausted the audience. So the best way is when you are thinking of when feeling that the content fatigue is coming, just check audience size. and see if that can be increased or enhanced. I mean, most of the time it's that, and because content fatigue doesn't come in a few days time.
God.
This
Makes
is a
sense.
reminder.
Sorry.
Hi, Siddharth. Thank you so much, Ms. Silva, for the wisdom. I have a couple of questions. One of that was that, you mentioned about staging that Meta does. So how does the brand find out what stage it is in? Is there a multiple attached to it or something? That's one. And second is, something related to what Jay just asked about content. How much time should we give to a certain kind of content to perform on Meta? Should be 2 days, 3 days? Is there an idea of that also?
Right. So I'll address the first question first. So there is traditionally, or even like academically, there is no way to say that you are at this stage or not. But ideally, if you are probably doing, let's say, between 1 and 5 CR ARR, that's a very random way to look at it. I'm assuming you are probably in the third stage or so, all right, or second stage at max. Because if you notice, most of the suggestions on the brand lift, conversion uplift, and conversion API, they come at the third and like the fourth and the fifth stage. And I think that's where you go traditionally from just conversion campaigns to using these platforms to generate branding and engagement, all right? And that's where they become extremely relevant. So there's no way to actually go out and say that you are at this particular stage. And second question, Adhir, was sorry, I'm missing it.
Sometimes you have a certain kind of content and you put it out as an advertisement on Meta. How much time typically should you give to see the content doing well or not? Is
So
there a time frame attached to it?
that's correct. So from agency perspective, we have a very different way of looking at it. So we look at cost per add to cart of any particular content that we launch. So if that cost per add to cart is not coming right, so let's say if my CAC for a campaign has to be 1,000 rupees for it to be profitable, my cost per add to cart has to be around 100 rupees, 150 rupees for it to be like really valuable. So as long as that content is not doing that, let's say over a period of 2 days, 3 days, we just let go of that content. I mean, we look at the like lower metric rather than the upper metric for the final decision.
Got it.
Adhir also, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, because it allows us to simply not lose the money, especially when it's critical in the scaling stages. Because even if you are, let's say, spending 10% of the budget on experimentation for a week, chances is just because of that your ROAS will look lesser. So we try to cut the campaigns at the very early stages itself. We don't like spend a lot of time. There was this brand that did a study. I think Fitello itself, we did a campaign using there's this movie star, I think from Dam Laga Ke Hai Sham, forgetting her name. We did a campaign with her. It was massive budget. We spent a lot of money. We killed that campaign within 2 days, right? And the reason we did it because the cost per lead has jumped by 2 times. So we don't take more time simply because it will completely like sabotage the monthly result that we are looking for. So we don't give it a lot of time.
Sorry, Siddharth, can you just explain that cost per lead jumped up means what on an algorithmically on its own, or is it? How did you? I mean, can you just explain that, please? Sorry. Within 2 days, you
I
said.
think this one example that I shared.
But that example itself, I'm talking Bhumi Pednekar, right? You're talking about her.
So that campaign had jumped.
Yeah. So how? I mean, in 2 days, you said it jumped. Can you explain that a little bit?
So
Cost per lead, you said.
yeah, the cost per lead actually jumped 2x if I remember correctly.
That's why I'm curious to know how
And
does that happen?
the reason that happened is because I think there was a lot of mismatch in the traditional communication we do versus the movie star communication, and we call it there's something we call like bad creatives. Bad creatives work really well because the reason is it sounds more authentic. Like जैसे कि अगर भूमि पेडनेकर ने बोला है in a very sophisticated video that hey you can get this diet plan and you at this cost and it will give a right results, right? It's very sophisticated video, and on social channels, specifically Meta, We feel that the more sophistication comes in your creatives, the lesser chances of its success. And I think that particular campaign was so sophisticated for Meta platform. If we had taken that campaign simply on TV, it may have worked really well. If we had done it on OTT,
Amazon.
may have worked well. But on that level, I don't think it's going
Yeah.
to do anything.
Basically, yeah, meta platforms are UGC first, right? So like, अगर हमें brand campaign करना है, तो either it has to be top of the funnel, or it has to be Google, YouTube, or Amazon, right? Like Meta is like generally UGC first. And Adhir, like just to answer your point as well, right? Like frequency of creators, there's the quantitative metric which Siddharth has mentioned. There's the qualitative research that you can also do. So like in a week, you can measure your ad quality score, like that's available on your dashboard, like your creative score, your conversion score, like those are, and your ad relevance score. And once you start seeing that your ad quality score is below average, for a period of time, and into that the cost per click, or the cost per add to cart has also been falling, that means that increasing, that means that like it's time to either switch off the creator for some time, then maybe switch it on later. But that's a signal that that ad is not performing now.
That's correct.
Great. These are mentioned in Google Merchant dashboard, right?
Yeah, they.
I have one last question, Siddharth. Just being a little selfish here, since you're here right now. How important is vernacular content? I saw that for Fitello, you've made an entire Instagram page, Fitello Tamil. So how important is vernacular content? Or do you think that it should be divided into another, page in itself and then produced? How would you go about it?
Yeah, so I wouldn't go on to say that you should have separate assets right now. I mean, it's at a certain scale that you decide to do these activities, because there's a lot of logistics involved as well. So creating a separate asset is just a like extreme example that I shared. But the point I was trying to make is vernacular content, to answer your first question, is important. Like it's extremely important. If you are using the similar kind of creative in certain region, it doesn't work. So the example here is the founders content. So on Fitello, we were using Dietitian Max content a lot, but the problem was it was working really great for us. By the way, he was using the kind of language that Delhi people, Chandigarh, Punjab, UP, they all relate with it. It even worked for us even in Rajasthan. But the moment we took it to Bangalore and Tamil Nadu and Kerala, it didn't, simply because that language is not they are used to. It's very plain and simple, right? और थोड़ा ये भी है कि वो सरदार फेस आई थिंक नॉर्थ इंडियंस बहुत जल्दी रिलेट कर पाते हैं उसके साथ. So that was one of the biggest reason and biggest learning for me as a marketer as well. Now when we are going there, we need a face and a language which people can relate to, and it's also a statement that when you're creating UGC content, have a thing in mind that if you're trying to use that content in other locations of India, you need to probably have different languages as well. And in India's context, it's very important.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Siddharth, Fitello mein kaun Taru was managing this, is it?
Yes, Taru is I think Chief Revenue Officer there.
Yeah, he's a good friend. Yeah, I got him in that White Hat Junior before he joined Fitello. Jitendra is also a dear friend.
He came from there. Yes, exactly.
Great. Siddharth, I think all of us will have questions. So can I add you in our cohort group? Like where if founders have questions, they can probably bug you and ask you more.
So Karan, you should also get me and Siddharth to talk separately. There are other synergies.
Sure.
I can obviously get him introduced to all my clients here.
Yeah. Tarun, by the way, is a D2C linchpin in the country. So any brand, any D2C founder, you want to get connected to, Tarun's the guy. So he's built the teams for all the leading D2C brands. So Siddharth, can we add you in the group?
That'd be great. I think there are a lot of questions that I've written. I think I haven't answered it. So probably I can answer. And just to know everyone that these are the questions I think I haven't answered. I think one was the tips for hiring an agency, frequency of content, marketplaces. I think marketplace I still touched upon it, but not in detail. Ad copy suggestions, and then there was how to use other advertising platforms like Taboola and YouTube. And probably I'll try to answer it in the group itself.
And if there's an externally shareable version of the deck that you can share with us, that would be like wonderful for founders to just go through.
I'll just share that in a PDF format with you right after the call.
Great. Thank you, Siddharth, so much for your time. Right, so guys, I have no commercial engagement with Siddharth, by the way, but I really feel that, because I've been a founder myself and I've run performance marketing myself, I feel that there is a time that you move beyond doing it on your own and you actually start engaging with experts. Because, as I said in the first thing, that sometimes in agencies, incentives are aligned with the brand's incentives, right? So, like, look at that. I mean, see Siddharth's help is generally a very helpful guy. And yeah, thank you so much, Siddharth, for sparing some time on a Saturday, and looking forward to collaborate.
Right. Thanks everyone. Thank you so much. I think it was amazing. It was a really nice sessions. And I think the questions were very contextual, relevant for everyone. And I hope I was able to make it valuable for you.
Without thanks, man. The marketplace remains. Let's see you later.
Thanks everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.